The dialogue translation from the source into the target language is commonly referred to as audiovisual translation. Audiovisuals were brought together with cinema and plowed their way through digital technology, allowing a wider audience to be involved in. As far as cinema is concerned, it was created by the Lumiere brothers in the late 19th century, and afterwards it developed on a large scale. This new medium of entertainment was considered the factory of dreams, emotions, suspense and adventures. It was developed over time. At the beginning it was silent, then it became sound. At first cinema was only black and white, and then it was full color. Its format changed from 2D to 3D. The dialogue in a film is of paramount importance in order to understand it. It gives more detailed information about the time of the story, the characters and their relationship. We arrived in the early 30s and dubbing in Hollywood was moving ahead. Only 2 years later, Italy began to use adapters and actors. The shooting of a film takes several steps, such as development, pre-production, production and post-production. For the language adaptation of the film, the most important and commonly used methods of conversion are respeaking, subtitling, voiceover, narration, commentary, visual description, dubbing and subtitling. The southwestern European countries prefer dubbing, whereas the northeastern European countries prefer subtitling. The latter is the translation of the film dialogues that appears simultaneously with the original language at the bottom of the screen. It's intended for people of various age groups with different cognitive faculties and potential disabilities. It can also be an essential aid for those who want to learn a foreign language or refine their language skills. The translator has to transfer the communication from the source language to the target one, from the oral to the written form, but he has to match the superimposed text on the spoken one and on the situation. Subtitles can be interlinguistic or interlingual. The former are the total or partial transcription of the dialogues into the same original language of the film. The latter are processed in a language different from the original. Moreover, they can be open, that is, superimposed onto the original version and projected as inseparable from the film, or closed, that is, optional in the original version because the viewer can eliminate them by remote control. Each line has a maximum of 33 or 40 strokes and can remain on the screen for up to 6 seconds. In order to create subtitles, different stages are required, such as text reduction, that is the transition from long to short units, diamesic transformation, that is the transition from the oral to the written code, and finally the translation from one language into another. With dubbing instead, the original film soundtrack is replaced with the translated and adapted one. Figures working at this process are the translator, who transfers dialogues from the source to the target language, the dialogue writer, who transposes and processes dialogues into Italian and carry out visual, rhythmic and lip synchronization, dubbing director, who chooses the actors to play the different roles and gives them some suggestions, the dubbing assistant, who views and divides the film into smaller sequences called rings, voice actors, who record voices, the front of house engineer, who is responsible for the quality of the recordings, the synchronizer, who works at synchronization between lips and dialogues, and the mix engineer, who combines the dubbed tracks with the international track and the music. A video game is a platform with spaces to explore, to modify and to travel to, where the gamer can freely shift from a fantastic world to another, behaving like the heroes of the film. Film industry maintains a leading position on the entertainment market, and video game represents the era of multimedia thanks to new techniques. People working behind a video game are numerous, and each of them is specialized in a particular field. Finally, there is the gamer, who is not only a consumer but also a reader and a spectator. The very first video game was Space War, and it spread rapidly. Within 30 years, handheld consoles have been developed. The transition from 2D to 3D was taking place. High-definition, touchscreen, and motion controllers have been developed. Dubbers are frequently forced to listen only the original video game sound, on which they are going to work without any visual support. Hence, compared to a film dubber, a video game dubber works under more difficult conditions. As for subtitles, a person who knows the source language, usually English, but whose mother tongue is the target language, controls the linguistic choices, their accuracy and grammar. Both media have several points in common. They have similar language channels, such as visual and auditory, and have a user, the spectator in case of films, and the gamer in case of video games. The film has a story that can be followed through images and arouse different emotional response in the viewer, while the game is intended to be actively enjoyed, to provoke a response. The first video game adaptation from a film dates back to 1976 with Shark Jaws, adaptation of Jaws. In most cases, adaptation follows the pattern book, film, and game. Adaptation can be multi-genre or monogenre. In the former, the plot and the sequence of events follow those in the film. In the latter, they are less loyal to the film. The video game Prince of Persia, originally released in 1989, became a comic book series in 2009, and the film, titled Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time, in 2010. Given the popularity among gamers, this video game saga provides the inspiration from the film adaptation. This game didn't need any subtitles because it was completely dubbed into Italian. Voice acting, instead, was appreciated for its class and style. It often happens that video games aren't dubbed very well, due to the lack of preparation by the voice actors. Having dealt with dubbing and subtitling in films and video games, I interviewed Davide Perino, the Italian voice of Elijah Wood and of the purple dragon named Spyro. He argues that the techniques used in these two fields are very different. In fact, in case of a film, we must bear in mind the movements, the breath and the breaks of the actor being in front of us, while in case of a video game there is no possibility of a visual comparison. He points out that the dubbing of an animation film is different from that of a cartoon. In the former, thanks to technology, characters are much more similar to humans in the flesh. In the latter, cartoon has its own nature, follows the imagination of a drawer, and the actor has to follow it. The use of dubbing and in some cases of subtitling, aiming and solving problems concerning different languages and cultures, has allowed viewers to enjoy various products in their native language. The great production line to make a film, with all its figures, also exists in the field of gaming, the new medium of entertainment, which now is part of everyday life for many individuals around the world. I have focused my attention on these two worlds, so similar but so different, because I've always been fascinated by the work behind the scenes that goes beyond the mere translation and synchronization with the lip movement of the actors or the characters. It's a precision assembly work, in which one single problem can affect not only the entire production but also the final product.